be live in a couple seconds here. I'm just going to step out to verify the sound, but it looks like you're good to go.
All right, thank you.
Not going to miss that one.
It is 6:30 and I will call the meeting to order. Would you please rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And roll call. Patty Jo.
Here.
Bruce.
Here.
Bob.
Here.
Roxanne. Here. Katie.
Here.
Myself here, and Catherine Cranston is absent. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Katie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Patty Jo. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Open forum. I did not have any requests. Did you?
Neither did I.
All right, thank you. So we are on to reports, the student representatives report. So I think we just need to click on it.
Oh, what are we jumping to?
Student report, right there.
Welcome to our April student report. Kicking it off as usual with spring sports. Almost all of our spring sports are beginning practice this week and they are all very excited. As for track and field, their first official meet will be held on May 6th at Osceola. The team is a bit smaller this year than it has been in the past. However, the team is very confident about their upcoming season. For golf, their first meet is next Friday at Hammond. All right. More spring sports. Baseball's first game is on April 27th at Larry Forest Park versus Ellsworth at 5 p.m. Softball, the team is super excited for their upcoming season and is looking forward to competing soon. Their first game will also be held on the 27th at Larry Forest at 5 p.m. against McDonald Central Catholic. Soccer officially kicks off their season next Monday. They are currently holding preseason practices to prepare. Moving on to activities. Forensics is finishing up this month with the state submissions going through this weekend. Participating members are hoping to hear back about their scores in the next couple of weeks. The play from last month is now available to all students and staff members. They can view it through a recording that has been sent to their school emails by Mrs. Olson. As for robotics, both teams were super successful this year. 9144A earned 2 tournament championships and 1 skills champion trophy. They lost in the semifinals at state. 9144E earned 1 tournament champion, 1 finalist, and 1 skills champion trophy. They lost in the quarterfinal at state. Here's a picture of our robotics team. And upcoming events. May 21st is the last day of school for seniors, which is coming up super quick. May 22nd is prom. June 2nd is senior memory night. June 6th is graduation. June 10th, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen get out of school. And continuing on to a little feature on Student Council and the school store. Student Council has begun planning a Spring Fling Week, which will take place in May. They are making plans for dress-up days, underclassmen royalty voting, and hopefully, depending on COVID restrictions, an outdoor talent show. The SHS school store has held another online sale which resulted in a great turnout. The senior managers have continued to work hard on the coffee cart, selling drinks and clothing to students throughout the school day. All right, and that's all that we have for you guys tonight.
Thank you. Superintendent's report then.
Yeah, a few items here tonight. Just a little bit on district health. Had our meeting with St. Croix County Health this afternoon, and Burnett, Polk, and St. Croix County are still there. We moved from high to the very high kind of alarm situation that we have here. We've Most of the schools in the area are sitting at about 4 or 5 students out. Hudson's got 40. It's just really, and we're seeing the same thing happening around the border communities in Minnesota also. So, but again, just it's kind of predictable right now with what we've heard last week as far as this going through the student population right now. So again, it was a good decision last week, and we'll just keep monitoring the situation, but hopefully everyone just gets accustomed to these till the end of the year at least. So, any questions about the health district-wise? You know, we've had, I think everyone who wanted a shot is vaccinated now twice, and we've had some that, you know, had some minor reactions to that. I haven't heard of anything catastrophic or anything, and, but moving forward, now the shot clinic for students is coming up over, there's gonna be 2 avenues for that, over at Hudson and over at New Richmond.
Did you get much response from that? or-
You know, we don't know. You know,
Oh,
'cause,
oh,
I mean,
sure
we
you don't.
can't know that, so,
Great.
you know, the county is taking care of it all, but,
Okay.
you know, from their reaction today, it's been a really good
Good.
reception of it, and so people are signing up. Next item I had down there was reading specialists, and this came up a few weeks ago. I think it was when we were doing policy work, and we were looking at, by policy, we should have a reading specialist, an active reading specialist on staff, you know, doing, you know, the assessment and what have you. We don't. And I think, we haven't had an active reading specialist for several years, and I think it was not a, this is my assumption that it wasn't a red flag, because we still have someone on staff that's listed with DPI as a reading specialist, but haven't been performing the function because that person's in the classroom now. So I just, I don't think we have an option to keep going the way we are going right now. I think somehow we have to have someone in that position. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and see if there's any comments about that, because we're gonna have to make some plans to fill this.
Well, I don't, you know, appended to the document was just some document about the purpose of instructional coaching. So I'm confused about what your intention is.
Well,
Are you
we've talked-
hiring a reading specialist, full-time reading specialist?
Well,
Or are you talking about instructional coach?
both, so it would be fulfilling both duties. We've talked about instructional coaches before.
That's a long time ago.
It's been a while, but it's always been on our plate, or on our radar, to help work and support staff, you know, with assessment data and how to, you know, enhance their classroom, and what have you. And, you know, with the reading specialist piece, you know, they're thinking that could be a combined position. We're the only district in the Middle Board Conference that doesn't have an active reading specialist. I checked with all the superintendents, and everyone does. And, you know, I guess, you know, Tricia's in constant contact with your people, you know, your peers in other districts, and I think it is a trend that people are moving more towards coaches.
Many of the districts around us, that is how they're coaching. We always say everyone deserves a coach, and that's when we moved our evaluation system to coaching and feedback, and we trained our principals to be active coaches. So they've all gone through impactful coaching, and so what they do is they go continuous feedback cycles. So they go into classrooms, they work with our teachers in order to look at their goals and to help impact instruction. What we know about an evaluator doing that coaching is it looks different than having a colleague or a peer doing that coaching. We talked about instructional coaching when we talked about the policy, because Catherine was sitting right over in that corner talking about, couldn't that reading specialist do dual roles? Because part of the policy talks about to act as the duties of a reading specialist shall act as a resource person to classroom teachers to implement the reading curriculum. And we've had reading as one of our goals based on our data for several years now. And we know that we just are in year 1 of implementing 612 Study Sync. It's very rigorous reading curriculum. We are trying to do it with fidelity, and we know we have some holes because of COVID. We had just walked into the pilot when we all shut down. So it was a good thing because there's an online component to StudySync, so our teachers were able to access it 612 from home. Then we continued that, but we've had a lot of PD, but it's been a really tumultuous year. We know that Journeys, which is what we use K-5, is not hitting the mark as a high-quality resource. Our subscription is up. We are starting a review process. It is perfect timing to bring on someone to assist in the implementation and review of a new high-quality resource. But we know that a high-quality resource, the first thing you have to do is effective teaching in every classroom. That trumps resource. Because you can have a subpar resource, and if you don't have effective teaching in every classroom, it will be fine, because that effective teacher will kill it. But if you have a high-quality resource and not effective teaching, it's the same problem. So you need both. High-quality resource to level the playing field, and you need effective teaching in order to make it great. In order to do that, we need an instructional coach who can be that reading specialist to fulfill both roles, working side by side, looking at data, helping use an effective quality resource, looking at student data to design instruction using the resource, which would be new, and looking at our reading goal in order to do the best job it can. So that's what we had talked about. We know that right now, districts around us are hiring. They're doing all their hiring. And that's what I had come to Mark and said, can we move on some of these more specialized positions? Because Osceola has already hired 8. St. Clair Central's already done their hiring. St. Clair Falls has already done their hiring. And we're sitting with a staffing document waiting to see how we're looking fiscally. A reading specialist position is considered almost an administrative position. A 317 is a teacher of teachers. It's a hard position to fill, and that's why there are so few of them. Especially one that would have instructional coaching kind of training, which many of them do. That is a position that it takes someone who has the skill and the knowledge to do so. Just because you hold a certification doesn't mean that you have the qualities it takes to sit side by side a classroom teacher and be able to work to do that right work. So it's a position that I would really like to have some discussion, some movement around in order to both fulfill the policy, state statute, but also to be able to do the right work across our campus. So that's why it's on the table right now.
Yeah, and a couple other comments I had in that section on the weekend update is, you look at all the districts around us, and it's kind of like squeezing a water balloon. That where are you going to invest your money? They're sacrificing class sizes for coaches and other positions where we've got, we've seen our enrollment drop, especially in the elementary. We've got several grade levels that are very low, and if we want to make a change in sections in some of these elementary areas, we could make it a cost neutral position, because I did this a while ago, ran some numbers, and next year we're going to have kindergarten at 17 students, third grade is 17 students. All of our elementary is under 20, which is fantastic. But again, it's where we want to spend our money.
Well, we've been required to having a reading specialist, but haven't had the position.
We do have.
No, I understand there is somebody who's certified as, but you're not using them as our reading specialist. So, and I seem to recall this coming up years ago, where there was concern that we weren't having anybody as a reading specialist. And I don't know exactly what they do, so I'd kind of be curious to see kind of a comparison of somebody who's dedicated as a reading specialist, what their job is like, versus the instructional coaching.
Is there any way that the person who's in the position could move to that position and then hire the easier positions that are to hire? If that position so hard and she's been in the position but hasn't been able to do it, does she have interest in doing it? Do we know?
Well, that's what she was hired to do, and she was hired to, when she was hired, half of her time was to work as the reading specialist to be the person who was directing the identification and diagnosis of students. They are not required to do that. Anybody with a 316 reading license can do it, but you need someone with a reading specialist license to direct it. And it's the same with the guiding and coordinating of an appropriate instructional program. And when she was hired, half the time was supposed to be devoted to that, and half the time was teaching in a classroom. And, you know, it was decided that she was apparently needed in a classroom more than to be reading, to fulfill those duties. I'm not sure how that happened.
That all predates me, so I'm, you know,
But I guess I would be curious about going back to what it was supposed to have been, the reading specialist half-time and instruction half-time. You know, I have always been more of a proponent of having the people who have the direct contact with the kids, the teachers and the support staff, who have their feet in the classroom every single day, having that impact directly with kids, than a person who is more administrative.
The disconnect, that could be there. Is that what you're saying? I was just, if it's easier to hire a teacher to replace her for the teaching stuff that she's doing and then put her in that role, is that an option? If there are more teachers available, if we already have her in that position?
I am not certain that someone who holds a certification may be the right person may even want that position.
Yeah.
It has come such a long way since she ever received that. She has not ever really been in this role since I've been here. She has really not done any of these things, and I've been in this role for, it's my 11th year. So it's been a long journey that she's been in a classroom and not done these roles. A 317 is a teacher of teachers. That's what that certification is. It takes it's a long journey to get a 317. A 316 is a teacher of students.
A reading teacher.
It's a very different certification to be a 317. So to find a 317 and be in a classroom half a day and be a teacher of teachers a half a day, I'm not sure that that is something that is a position you would find you could create. I mean,
Is that what statute requires, is 317?
yes. That is what a reading specialist is a 317. Mhm. A 317 supports teachers and teachers support students. So that's the hierarchy. And if you read what it says in the state statute, work with administrators to support and implement reading curriculum, conduct annual evaluation of reading curriculum, coordinate reading curriculum and other reading programs and other support services within the school district, act as a resource person to classroom teachers to implement reading curriculum, develop and implement a reading curriculum in grades kindergarten through 12. That's just one section of it.
So really what you're saying is the reading specialist kind of automatically is a coach.
Right, that's the duties. Mhm. Because they support teachers to support instruction.
So,
That's why it's a hand in hand. We're just saying, to define the role, that's how it makes more sense to teachers, because that's what the role is.
well, we must have a reading specialist, so, and the board doesn't have a choice in there.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's why I would like to have like a green light to start trying to find the right person to support our teachers. And it would be a K-12 position, but generally when you intervene and support instruction, especially in reading, you start K2. Because if you're not reading at grade level by K3, it sets up a long journey of trying to fill that gap. So you really hit it hard K2. In fact, many districts in the area are spending their ESSER monies, those extra ESSER monies that they're given that must be spent on trying to fill the gap on early intervention of reading. Because you know that reading by grade 3 is imperative.
But they would actually be K-12.
Maybe K-12, absolutely.
Well, it seems like we need to move forward with this. I could do some work on how we're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, and
Are you looking for a motion from us tonight to post this position?
Well, this was not brought to the board for the work session, so we should not be voting on it tonight.
This was more information to get it out there so we can do some, I need some direction on this, and then we can put it on personnel for next.
I think we need numbers on how much they're paying in other areas and who has them. And I mean, they have to, we don't really.
Well, I can come back with all that for our work session.
is this one of those positions where we can put feelers out though by posting it and then looking? I mean,
do.
is this one of those positions where we can put feelers out by posting it and starting to look for candidates? Doesn't necessarily mean we have to hire them if we can't
Correct.
find the funding.
Correct.
So I think that's what, is there anything wrong with posting the position and looking for someone? It
Starts
doesn't,
with a job description.
Yeah, I think that would be the first thing, is to make sure we have all that.
And we should have a job description.
I believe we do.
It sounds like the state is giving us our job description.
Yeah.
well, mhm.
I didn't hear you, Bruce.
The state is telling us what the job description is
Basically.
for DPI.
Well, not if we're envisioning it somewhat differently.
Well, it's all, I mean, is DPI, because I guess I can regulate, are they okay with a halftime as long as that person is doing the instruction, the reading specialist duties? And then, is that what the goal is,
Yes.
Mark? That this person's halftime?
Well, we've got to look at basically it's full-time, but we have to define with the job description just what the duties are, and then I'll allocate the time to it. But I don't see it being a part-time position.
No, I'm not saying part-time, I'm just saying, is an instructional coach different than a reading specialist? You know, because you'll hire an instructional coach for science or math or just in general. But are we saying this reading specialist is just, they're basically hiring them and saying, you're a reading specialist, but you're also,
Acting as to coach
To coach just for
teachers.
reading.
Yeah, to act as a resource person for classroom. I think what Bruce is getting at is like New Richmond, for example, has instructional coaches for math. They have instructional coaches for reading. They have a whole team that work with teachers in order to go into classrooms side by side to do the science of instruction. We have no instructional coaches. We would like to someday get there. We do not. We've never acted in that manner yet. We know that's the best way to improve and support our teachers, improve instruction, and that's the way we impact student achievement. This would be a first step, and it would be by doing what state statute says, and that is bringing on a reading specialist to act as a resource to our teachers in the way of an instructional coach, looking at data to help implement a reading curriculum. That's how it would read.
okay.
Does that make sense?
But Bruce, school districts sometimes share reading specialists through CISA,
That's what I was just gonna say is.
as we
it
have
does
in the
matter.
past with physical therapists, occupational therapists. At one time, even our special ed director was shared through CISA with other school districts.
Not typically schools our size. Because you hire them for a certain number of days.
I've got enough to go on now to get you the information you need.
Thanks.
The next item on here is last day of school. Last couple administrative meetings, we've been looking at what, trying to get summer school all shored up and get our summer schedules going. And as we look, as I mentioned in on the weekend update, you saw basically two requests. There was one with ending the student day, I think it was on Tuesday, because we're going right into summer school on that Monday. And we do have more construction issues, we've got furniture issues, we've got things that are gonna put some pressure on the teaching staff. And if we can buy them a few days to help get organized, I'd like to do that.
It says June 8th and then it says June 4th.
Right, so I'd love it if we could end student days on the Friday before, but if we, can't do that, if we can buy them a couple days and end on Wednesday, excuse me, is that Tuesday? I think it was Tuesday. That would give at least 2 days for staff to kind of get things situated after this year. And on Monday, summer school starts. And a lot of these spaces, we've got to do some rearranging and, but again, I just need a little direction, see what your thoughts are.
Why do I always have to speak up when I don't like something first? Why do I do that? So I am not in favor of this, because this would be like the third year in a row where we've changed the last day of school on the calendar. And I think we have all summer to take care of whatever furniture needs might be. And, we've already reduced student contact days by like 10 to give the extra time because of the combination of distance learning and in-school learning that the teachers have gone through. And I just don't see, we've known for quite a while that this is going to be the last day of school, and I don't wanna, parents have to plan too. And it's another week of daycare they'll have to think about. I don't see an overwhelming need. I've supported the last couple for good reason, but this, to me, I just think we've known for a long time that that's gonna be the last day, and we should be able to deal with it.
What about changing summer school? Why does summer school has to start right on the 14th?
Well, we have a late start this year and pushed us back. We're basically a week longer than any other district around. And just the way the timing of the, you go 3 weeks before the 4th, a week off, and then 3 weeks again. So we're trying to bring things back to normal. And
Didn't we also
that's-
start a week later though?
Pardon?
Didn't we start a week later for the construction? That's why we're a week later?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what caused us to go
Yeah.
back a week. Typically, we would have been,
Is the summer school thing an option? I mean, if they need that much time, couldn't they start that on like the Wednesday and have those 2 days? Start summer school on like the 16th instead of the 14th?
a lot of this happens over at the elementary school, and that's one of the big pressure points right now is getting those trailers emptied and classroom furniture back in, and just the kind of the, you got paths crossing and what have you there.
Well, this wasn't brought up at our April work session either. And even though we talked about the waiver and reducing instructional time, so I don't think we should be voting on it at a regular session when it wasn't discussed at a work session previously. And I have concerns as well about cutting more instructional days from our students when we have cut so many already. And when we were talking about achievement at the work session, it seemed to be a message that things weren't exactly where we had hoped they would be. So we can bring it back to the May work session if you'd like.
Again, it's up to the board if you want to, otherwise we'll just plan accordingly.
I agree. I mean, we've had a lot of days that have missed. I think I hear what, I know why we want to do it, and I understand from the construction side, and I understand, but I think with this one, we run it to the end of the school year. And
Okay, no, we'll keep it just the way it is then. The next group was questions that came up at once around the table. You know, the first one was about the lighting outside, and talking with George, and, the vast majority of the lights are on timers, and somehow the timing wasn't right on those. We're using LED lights now, and we're using about a third of the energy we used to use, but they're a lot brighter, so it probably looks like we're hosting the Super Bowl here every night. And so he's recalibrated the timers to shut off at 12:15 a.m. And the reason we run them that late, especially during sports season, because late buses and kids are around and what have you. So they will be turning, the vast majority of them will be turning off at 12:15. We do have building lights that have to stay on around, so there will be some. And he's also checking into just the zoning of this and what lights that we want to keep on. So again, they were on quite a bit because the timers weren't set right. And so he's gone in, so this issue will be dealt with.
Before you move on, you said that they've been switched out to LED light bulbs now. So if they're LED, does that mean that some of them could be turned off earlier or not?
Well, that's what he's checking into,
Okay.
because like the high school has several different zones, and we gotta coordinate which ones we keep on for security and what have you, which ones we can turn off. So it's on his plate, and so
Okay.
he's gonna be
Thank you.
working up a schedule there. But there was a mistake with the programming after everything was said and done. He actually wasn't trained on how to get in and set them, so they were just,
Yeah, because usually they set a certain amount of time after it gets dark or something.
yeah.
When it gets darker later, they stay on later if they're set up that way.
So he's a timing expert now. As far as the question about outside, people outside the school community accessing the scoop, because now we push it out through Facebook and our website, and I think it goes out through campus. We don't have an avenue for people to give us their emails like we mentioned before, but right now, just to tell people that if they want to access it, they can go to our website or Facebook, and they can access it, so they can have access there. The Rural Virtual Academy, just before I came in here, I see there was a note from a parent that has been requesting this. We've checked into this several times over the course of this year, and I think Brandon did kind of a deep dive into it also. And this Rural Virtual Academy is over on the eastern part of the state, and there's no one around here even accessing that or using that information, or using forming a partnership with them. And from what we hear, they're not accepting any more schools for the 21-22 school year, so we couldn't do this, but it's not financially advantageous for us to do that. And if you read her letter, I think it went out, I don't know if it went to all the board members or not, that, if they want to access our activities, and by statute, they can't access our, plan our teams or what have you, if they belong to a virtual school, not our virtual school. So what we've decided to do is Brandon's working on setting up our own middle school, and that's where the ages are, middle school, our own virtual academy here, and we're working through that right now. So, they use, Rural Virtual uses Edgenuity and OdysseyWare, and that's what we've been using, and we will, so they can access our virtual school at the middle school, and then they can participate in our sports. So it's kind of a win-win deal all the way around. So that's what we're working on right now with that. So I don't know if there was any other questions about that.
So will those parents who have contacted us be notified of that?
Soon as we get, right now, one of the hiccups we had this last year with the whole virtual situation was the entry requirements and what have you. Because I think we started out with, what do we have, Trish, about 140 kids, and we're down to
42.
about 42. And a lot of it was our own doing, that we didn't have some screeners out there to ensure success in those programs. Now, this family here, obviously they're successful in the virtual world. They could really take advantage of what we have, and then again participate in our activities and that. So again, our money isn't going away. We're maintaining. That's one of the charges that we've had as far as starting our own virtual school is, why let kids access other districts? Let's keep them in here. So that's what we're working on right now, and I don't know what the status is of, Brandon's work here, as he's setting up the middle school thing. It's going, it's moving,
Yep.
so, and they will be notified. Last one I had on here, I think there was a question about the food shelf, and I spoke with Lynn Harstead, Abby's assistant, who's heavily involved with the food shelf, or food pantry. But the food pantry has never accessed our busing in the summer, and it has to do with the confidentiality issues with this. And currently, the counselors are the ones privy to who receives backpacks during the school year. We may go after a release of information from these parents, so we could use the buses in the summertime with that, but Lynn is gonna be talking to Deb Reveley and the person at the food pantry. We have no problem with them using our buses for that. It's just a confidentiality issue there, and if they get that cleared up, and just a thing to note, we don't run regular bus routes during the summer, so it would have to be adaptive to that. We have no problem with that.
And we only run the buses for 6 weeks.
Right. Yeah, so right now they're picking them up, I think they pick them up at the library too, the backpacks, I think. That was a drop there, but we'll work with them, and so Lynn's kind of heading that up, and she'll get back to me.
Thank you.
And that's, those are the 4 issues I had right there. The next one was building its grounds. We had quite a discussion last time, and I'm just assuming that we're gonna look at I think I put in my thing, maybe a 4 to 6 week training period for this person.
You said 4 to 6, didn't specify weeks or months.
What's that?
I'm seeing your
Weeks.
note, I assumed.
Weeks. I'm not going near the month thing again.
But I think you skipped school perceptions update on the agenda. Was there something about that?
Oh, the staff survey's out right now. I
Okay.
can't, what was the question about?
There was a package, it was in the WASB convention.
Oh, yeah, sure. To access all those, it was $2,000, and I think after our meeting, I said, we're gonna take it back to the administrative team, and we all thought, good idea, let's access them and try them this year, see what we can administer and what we can't. And so I contacted them, and it's a new program, a new offering for them, so I just said, yes, we're in, but I haven't heard back from them.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, for that, knowing what these surveys are and what have you, I mean, we could probably save ourselves a lot of money if we administer them ourselves. So, but that 4 to 6 weeks sounds okay with building the ground. That way we can start our timing on when we do interviews and what have you.
I have thought some more about that. We're talking November and December, so maybe we should make it like 2 months because of Thanksgiving break and Christmas break. I don't know how all that works. If those people work over Thanksgiving break and Christmas break, is this something that we should start November 1st to make sure that they get the 4 to 6 weeks in with George?
And it's something that we've got to work with George on how, there's some other strings with this also about vacation and what have you, and that, so I want to come back with some more information just about that, so we make sure we get some good training period in there. But right now, we'll just plan on that 4 to 6 weeks. If there's extenuating circumstances like vacation or something, maybe we'll have to go to 8, but I'll bring it back here before we commit to anything like that.
Thank you.
So when are you looking at starting to interview for that, do you think?
Well, we've posted it, we've got quite a few applicants for it and that, but we'll just put it on hold right now, contact everyone and say, hey, here's our timeline. And we opened it up just so we could see what the interest was out there and help us plan a little bit.
I hope that we have some board members who would be willing to serve on the interview committee for that.
Yeah, we'll put a committee together.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big position. Enrollment report, last couple of months we've gone up by 3 students each month, but we're still down from the year to date, on that. And that's all I have.
The financial reports are listed next. Did anybody have any questions on those? Learner connectedness then, would somebody like to, this was brought before us at the work session. It's the early college credit program and the Start College Now program. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, so motion by Bruce and second by Katie. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion carries. The next item is the DPI waiver. This school board meeting is acting as the public hearing on our request, and it was at the work session on April 12th as well, where this was discussed quite a bit. We are requesting a DPI waiver due to COVID-19, 4 hours of instruction, educator effectiveness, and staff evaluations. Would anybody like to make a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
All right, so motion by Katie and second by Roxanne. Is there any questions or discussion or comments on the DPI waiver? Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, not at all.
Were the correct check boxes checked?
Yes.
Wasn't done before we set it up last time.
My only thing is, I see we're supposed to sign this. Did you want that signed tonight?
Do you have it or do I have it
I don't
here?
have it.
I have it here.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
okay, that's it.
Tasia gave me good instruction. Yeah, it's just, you and I, Lori.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then we are on to phase 2 and 3, the construction projects. Mark, did you want to address this?
Just, the phase 2, I sent in my note that, we have 4 projects on there, but we need approval, final approval on the first 3, and then we're waiting for the final bids on the drop-off out here.
So would someone like to make a motion to accept the bids for the phase 2 construction projects as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve that.
And
I'll
is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion by Bruce and a second by Patty Jo.
So they're just their budget numbers in for this turnaround right now?
They feel really good about that. They've got some strong contingency built into that
Built into what?
out here. This work out here,
The district office.
the parking lot out here, yeah.
Good.
All right. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Then all in favor of accepting the bids?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Then the phase 3 construction project.
Right, so I just, with the numbers we have for phase 2 and what we presume will be remaining funds, from the conversation that we had during the work session, that I reorganized kind of what I thought your priorities were as far as maintenance-related type pieces, and that's what phase 3 is showing now, a reduction in some of the projects. But the projects in there will, again, we did have, when I went back through my notes, we had about $100,000 credit from Wold, which will take care of the design fees on this. So basically, we had enough money to do the things that are happening in the buildings which will finish the buildings off. And so we won't have any ongoing maintenance for quite a while.
You mean all these listed on the expenditure phase 3, on this list at, looks like 245, 369?
Let's see, where are you at, Katie?
I'm on added construction projects, 317.
It's toward the top of your link.
Okay, so I've got the added construction projects here. We've got, so everything, the 4 projects, should come in, and we, at a budget of 1.8 million. We have about 2 point.
Jason's got it pulled up on the screen too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we should have, a balance of, after these projects, the 4 big ones, we should have a balance of around 283. And again, that's where the phase 3 projects that were listed above, the elementary mechanical, district IT space, the old district office, the music and fax area over at the middle school, which is a big one. And, the athletic, the graphics in the high school are different from the painting in the gym and the hallway there. These are added Spartan type graphics that are on doors and what have you. And then we just added a middle school paint because we had some other rooms there. I think it was down in the art room, and that hallway wasn't painted during construction. So again, that's roughly around $250,000. And they feel they've got a strong contingency in the high school for the, the gym remodel and out here. So, knock on wood, I think we'll be sitting with some more dollars at the end of these projects.
So if you go down a little bit, Jason, please.
Mm-hmm.
So if I understand this right, Mark, so our total here is showing, you can go down to the next one, I guess.
Yeah.
That we show, if we went through with the phase 3 projects, we would be 38,000 ahead. We
Left remaining.
remaining.
That's not counting any of the contingencies that are
Right,
out there yet.
so we're still showing we would have a balance at the end of this of roughly $40,000 if we approve phase 3.
Right, for the numbers we know right now.
Right.
And so, again, if we approve phase 3, some of these, I'm gonna sit back a little bit for a couple of weeks until I know for sure what is happening out here.
Okay.
Right now, they say we've got plenty of contingency, we feel good, but I don't want that to come in at 500,000,
Right.
and we only have 420, so.
But Mark, that was not the entire list of the original
Right.
phase 3.
Right,
So I got confused when you said it'll take care of all the building needs. Like, does it take care of the carpeting?
yes. Yeah,
Does.
the carpeting in the high school, those 7 rooms is up in, so
Sorry, I'm
yeah,
just trying to clarify.
Mark and Johnson did a little re-engineering of my numbers here,
Oh.
and they included the carpeting in the
A
high
difference.
school renovation.
Told you they'd find it.
You did.
Well, actually, I have it, if you pull up, it does say 7,
7 RMS carpet.
well, it should be high school. 7 rooms at the high school.
Oh, yes, I see.
Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
okay.
So Mark, I still have a question about the gym remodel.
Mhm.
So Jason, if you go down to the high school athletic gym remodel,
Right there.
yeah, the bottom item is hallway graphics.
The high school. But you have these at the middle school is the one they're added above the line, right?
What's that?
So it's the high school graphics here, but then there's middle school graphics on the one.
No, it says
No,
high
no,
school.
no, it's not. This is probably just a typo on my part here by putting it in 2 places.
Yeah.
There's only one high school graphics
So
piece, but it's
that-
not included in the high school remodel, so that should be off of there. That's my mistake. Right there.
So that shouldn't be there?
No, because that was a separate, that was an add-on
Okay,
that we wanted to have back, so
Okay.
that can actually be taken off of there.
all right.
Good catch.
I'm sorry.
Good catch that.
So are you looking for us
In fact, it's gone.
to make a motion on that one tonight, Mark?
Pardon?
Or you're not making, you don't want us to make a motion on that, you want us to wait till the bids come in for the?
No, I would like you, I'd like you to make a motion, because some of these bids we may lose, because they've been
Well,
on the table for a while.
if we're still showing we're gonna finish 40,000 ahead with contingencies, with design, I'm fine with making a motion. I mean, I'll make a motion to approve phase 3 construction projects, and thank Mark and Johnson and you for getting creative and finding a path to get there, you know, so appreciate it.
Can we add a little more specifics on that? Because can you say like, as outlined in
You want to attach dollar amount to it, Bruce?
245, 369?
$245,000
$245,369.
So I will restate this here. I would like to make a motion for phase 3 construction projects for $245,369.
All right, so Bruce has made a motion. Would anybody second it?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bob.
So was there anything else not included then, Mark? The boards, there a lot?
Yeah, we
Oh.
talked quite a bit, yeah, there was probably $50,000 of furniture and remodeling.
Okay,
for
so
the,
after we know,
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and those things are, you know, they're not gonna interfere, if we decide to do anything here, it's not gonna interfere with kids or,
Right.
you know, what have you, so.
okay.
And we still have plenty of time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
I'm just worried about some of the phase 3 because we've had the bids
Right.
sitting out there, and
Yeah.
things are going up, and people get nervous.
Okay.
So Bruce has made a motion and Bob has seconded it. Is there any further discussion or questions? All in favor then?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries then. Compensation gap model discussion is the next item on the agenda. Some time ago, I had sent a request for some further information. Because if the board is going to, well, if the board is going to move forward and make any kind of decision or recommendation on this, I think we need some more information. So last time we looked at this issue, the business office had supplied some data for the board. And I think it's important that we have that data again, that it be updated so that we know what we're talking about. But that's my opinion. Is there anybody who agrees or disagrees?
Are you talking about having a list of people on the gap and maybe where they're at on the gap?
And how much there is left to be addressed?
Okay. I think that would be helpful to have eventually, definitely. I think we should have that eventually. I don't think we need it right away, but we're gonna need it eventually, yes.
Can are you wanting to talk, Bruce?
Go ahead, Katie.
Well, you know, I missed that meeting, and I'm so sorry I missed that meeting, couldn't make it, but, there were some things that were pretty inaccurate that I would just like to hopefully try to clarify. I think the board, in its wisdom, is trying to, create more internal equity. And this wasn't something that, I heard it said at the meeting that, our, Victoria McGrath, the expert we had hired, had said, oh, nope, once they're on there, that's it, then they should just move up once. That is not true. We had a whole nother meeting with her to try to clarify about, you know, how we might addressing this issue of internal inequity. And unfortunately, the sound didn't work for that meeting, so you can't even refer people back to listen to what she had to say. But I can honestly, I think the big problem came in when we were expecting our business office to figure out 25% of somebody's gap rather than just using the steps that are already laid out on the grid. So in order to try to make it so that a teacher who's been here 14 years isn't being paid a lot less than somebody with the same step and lane as they do, as somebody who has many fewer years of experience here. That's what we're trying to do. The difficulty really came in, and I did vote against it when they tried to use this trying to fix it by 25%, which meant you were no longer following the steps. Now these steps and lanes, when we adopted this grid, we went back to the step and lane model that had been used by the district for years. So when you do that, we have created a, well, you know, the wisdom of the person who did all the wage study on it, what is market for that position here in Somerset School District? So you have somebody who's been here 14 years, who's been teaching for 14 years, and has, you know, the master's +6 or whatever level they're at. This is what their salary is worth, and that was based on comparables that she did with other districts that we told her to. So it was all very well thought out, and I just don't want us to say, okay, this is hard, we can't do it again. I was so happy when the board said, okay, let's get them. I'm so grateful you guys went to the step and then another step, because I think that's the smart way to do it, and it doesn't put our business office in the horrible position of trying to figure out who's making what salary on a 25% basis of fixing that. So we as a board, it is concerning when you are working side by side, doing the same job as somebody else and have been here for many years, for many more years, and somebody else is making more than you. It's just something that you have to fix. So I just want to say, I hope we can continue going forward. You don't have to do it every year, but as a board, I think we should commit ourselves to keeping it as a priority. You know, when we can do it. Doesn't, you know, you guys did that, you voted to remedy some of it. Now we need to know, okay, where are we at? Because as you do this, when you add an additional step to get somebody caught up to the level they should be at, then more and more people will drop off. And so it'll become less expensive, you know. And we just don't know where we're at, but it was never a scam. It was never, so I just feel like the business office is frustrated at trying to work with all these different figures. But that was never, ever the intention of, you know, trying to put people where they actually belong, to get them there. I mean, we did that with our support staff and supervisory support staff, and way back when we put them at market for their position, after we had implemented the grid, you know, because it took some time, because it all costs money. And so I hope this board will remain committed. But I agree, there's no absolute hurry. But I would hope that this board would just keep moving on. Because it's a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do.
You're absolutely right. Bruce?
Yeah, I think Roxanne and Katie could go. Right now, I think there's nothing we have to do right now. No, I wasn't really a proponent to look at it again, but I understand why we would want to be looking at it again in the future, so we can review it again, I don't have a problem with that. But I was just wondering, how, with this gap model, is there a, I'd have to look back at the sheet, is there a spot where people are at, or is that gap growing if we don't do anything? You know, is the number getting larger, or we, you know, if we don't do anything a year, are we losing ground on this? I guess I can't remember how it kind of was built.
And I don't
But there was a
really-
difference. I think there wasn't, it wasn't like we were trying to get them to a step. We were saying there was a difference that we were trying to make up, which is why we went with the 25%, because we were trying to make up a dollar amount.
Right.
So we're not like getting them to a spot, we were making up a dollar. So I'm wondering, are we, if they refigure this, are we going off of, okay, back in 2019 when this gap model was made, are we coming up, it was $10,000. So it's gonna be $10,000, you know, until we get them paid up, or,
Well, it'll be a certain number of
Well-
steps, you know, and that will total up to what the dollar amount is. But if you know, like you just did, you gave those who were behind, where they would otherwise be on the step and lane model, if you give them one extra step, that works. Yeah, it narrows the gap. So
but I'm
I
saying, is
think
that-
that's the
is that-
smartest thing you can do, though.
So we're just taking the number that we started with at the beginning, the difference number, and that's the one we're using, so,
So every single time we do something, we are narrowing that gap. But right now, and in March, when we were trying to address this, we didn't have the updated numbers.
well, it's,
So before we talk about it again, whenever that is, we need updated numbers.
yeah, so, and that's kind of my point, so where should this person have gone who was at a point? You know, we made them go a step and a half because they were in between a step. Well, what's the real number that they should have been making if they were at $50,000 and they had a gap of 10,000 and they were kind of in between? Well, how do we know we even made up any ground if we gave them a step and a half? You know, was there a real raise, you know, a full step from where they started, and then they only gained, you know, that half a step? I'm just wondering, how are we as a board, or how are we as a business office, how is that?
I
Yeah.
can tell you, it'll be a lot easier for them to figure out with everybody on an actual step. So I think that'll be easier for them to come up with those numbers. But yes, you're gonna make up some, because each step only has a certain percent in between. And usually as you go up in steps, after so many years of service, the percentage actually gets lower between steps. So like, it might be a 2% difference between, on the person getting the credit for the 14 years, right? But on somebody who's been here fewer years, there's usually a greater percentage to get them to a market rate. I'm
Yeah,
not
and-
explaining it very
And
well.
well, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how we know if we made up any ground. Because if there was teachers or staff who were a couple $100 from another step, and then we gave them a full step, well, did they only make up $300?
But the ones already on a step,
Like, I
They
know,
went
but I'm
up
just
a
saying
step.
from last year, I mean,
right?
so who's gonna make the determination that yes, you actually gained this much because you've been paid now 2 years in a row at this amount, or,
But somebody went up one step, right? The other person went up 1.5.
well,
So
we
that
don't
is
know it was
gaining
in 1.5,
ground.
it was the next closest, and then, because it was all based on that
So it's gonna
percentage.
have to come down to dollar amounts.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, okay, we started with $1, now okay, if you would have been, you were starting you're at this 50,000 at step 5, and then you gain your 25% in this, and now the board gave you another step and a half, so if we would have been normal, you would have only been up 1 step and 2 steps. So this is where you should be, but because you got that 25% and a step, are you at step 4 or?
So it makes me wonder, when I look at the document that we got in 2019, there could be people in that bottom tier that are now at the level they're supposed to be.
I agree, I'm just wondering how we're,
Yeah.
and I understand why Jody's gonna have a mess, maybe she'll look at it and it'll just kind of click.
Well, I think it helped what the board did. I think that helped,
I
putting
know,
somebody
I
on
just-
step.
Well, I guess we'll see what she comes up with again. I don't think we have to have a set time right now because especially with the insurance number, I don't think we're doing anything in the near future.
Yeah.
A year from now, maybe that's something we can bring back after, you know, Dave gives us our mid-year update and
Yep.
whatever.
Yes.
Yep.
So, totally agree. We need to move in steps.
Yeah.
Not,
Yes.
you know, I mean, and, you know, if we redo the calculations, I gotta lock Jody away for about a week and a half so she can just do it.
Yeah.
Totally agree with the concept. The only thing I'm worried about, and you brought that up, Bruce, is just until we find our path with this health insurance piece.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also our ESSER dollars. And once
Yes.
we get a grasp on that, we can make some recommendations. But in the meantime, what I'll do is I'll sit down with Dave and Jody, and just from this discussion, see if there's a pathway that we can get some numbers we can start playing with. Because, you know, we talked about when we were doing compensation for this year, you know, we were kind of advocating for a step and a percentage lift of the
Yes.
schedule for next year. And, you know, you should think about that, the lifting the schedule, because that's the only way the people on the top make
I agree.
make
I
out,
agree.
unless you do something different there.
Yep.
So not to add another layer on this, but let me have a discussion with them, and we can put it on for, you know, the next work session to have a brief discussion too, and I come back and say, here's what it's gonna take to get the data that we need to look where we wanna go. Again, waiting for this healthcare thing and the ESSER dollars, I'd feel more comfortable with.
But make sure that they know that they can wait until June
Oh, yeah.
or
And it's just a little
July.
tight this time of year with
or-
budgeting and what have you, but I'll have that conversation and either send you out a note or bring it back at the work session.
Yeah.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? Roxanne, you look concerned.
No, I actually appreciate the conversation, and I'm happy that we're keeping that conversation open, so thank you.
Patty Jo, anything?
No, nothing.
Okay, all right, good. The next item then is policies, and there are only 2 items that we need to take a look at, unless somebody has questions or concerns about any of them. But if you look at policy 0144.5, there is an option that we briefly discussed at our work session. And it has to do with whether or not we check an option. So it was the recommendation of the, yep, it's a little bit further down. Yep, great, thank you. So it was the recommendation of the committee that we check it. There is the final sentence of that section that says exceptions may be made by the board in case of an emergency or other special circumstance. But we purposely, you know, wrote a note that we felt we should get the entire board's opinion on this. So do you want this option checked or not?
Well, who's gonna say that your phone usage is not a special circumstance? Like, Bob's gotta have his phone if something happens. You know, I had to leave mid-meeting last year when a water main broke on one of my jobs. I mean, if something happens at your house, you see your phone's on the table and you pick it up. I'm not gonna go tell you to not answer your phone, you know, during a meeting. So personally, I think that last line trumps everything before it, and I don't know why we check it at all. I don't think any of us here is gonna sit there and, I don't think anybody on the board is gonna sit on Facebook the whole time, and I think that's what, in my opinion, that's what it's saying. That you can't have it open.
It wasn't, it was mostly about people seeing it and thinking that you're disseminating information
No, I,
to each other and not open, right?
Or
The board.
getting information
Yeah.
from someone who's not on the board.
Yep, and that was more because of the appearance of having your advice and the community seeing it and other people seeing board members on devices and things being said and thinking that there's hijinks around.
So it has to do with transparency.
yeah, I'll split my phone on the screen so nobody cares. I think the last line, I don't think anyone as us can say that whatever you're doing on your phone is an emergency, you know, at any time. I'm not gonna be calling somebody out. Closed session, that's a different story. You know, I think that's a separate topic or a separate policy anyway.
Well, it's part of the same policy law.
And in all honesty, if we check it, then if someone needs to provide that explanation, if it's questioned by someone, and I agree, it's not going to be questioned for the most part, but we do have a higher rate of people watching our meetings, we have a higher rate of people questioning what's going on in our meetings, so that's, kind of.
But also you can have board members attending remotely.
Yeah.
So how do you know what they're doing?
Well, you should be on video if you're attending remotely personally, but that's a separate
But that doesn't
topic.
mean you're not texting.
Does the general expectation of all board members, A through G, not pretty much summarize the expectation of board members and would it not include the parameters under the electronic communication devices prohibited? I mean, just, it's,
So you're saying, for
Well, I
example,
mean,
that letter C covers it?
electronic communication, is this not my laptop, a communication device? Somebody emails me? I'm just saying, on the integrity thing, you would think that, you would hope that the board would comply with the ethics that is expected when our two new board members are taking an oath tonight, that, they're swearing to uphold the duties and what's entailed in our bylaws here. So I don't know. It's obviously not going to affect me, but
I really don't find a need for it. I feel like if it becomes a problem, I mean, I always have my phone out, but it's just because I worry about things I shouldn't worry about, like if there's an emergency in my family. It's just stupid. But I think if it becomes a problem, you can certainly bring it back if you are concerned about it. I don't know.
I wasn't hung up either. I don't see, with that exception
Yeah.
sentence, I don't see a problem with it being checked. I guess that's where, I know it's redundant, but I don't have a problem with it because there's an
Well, that's
emergency
true.
there.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't bother me with it
Except
being
this
checked.
isn't a special circumstance, it's just I keep it out, I'm not on it.
But it's being on it more so than using it during the board meeting is what it is. Your use of it is not allowed unless it's in a special circumstance that warrants an exception.
Okay, fine with that.
Like you get locked outside.
Yes, and that has happened. And I've had to text. True.
Or we text last week because we don't have a link yet. to
Right.
Start the meeting.
This is
We're here,
true.
we're waiting.
This is true.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess that's. the
And we
only
could all
reason I
email,
don't-
we could do everything on your computer that you could pretty much do on your phone other than text.
Yeah,
Neola must have wanted it in there for a reason.
yeah, I'm good with it.
Oh, well.
So I'm not clear.
On what we're saying?
I'm getting muddled messages. So how would you like to proceed?
Well, you could keep it checked.
Roxanne, do you have a problem with it?
I honestly don't have an opinion either way because I've only experienced everyone here has been very professional with their phones if they're out. You know, I guess I just don't have a real firm opinion either way. I know I don't need mine on, but some people do, and I'm okay with that.
So, yes or no?
I say you can check it, and, you know, somebody like Bob might come and say, hey, I have this position that, my job, I have to have my phone here. I'd be like, absolutely, you should have your phone here then. That's my opinion.
Okay, Bob,
I'm fine with it, I just,
Bruce,
really, doesn't really matter.
I'd say no, but it doesn't matter anymore at this point.
okay, Patty Jo?
Yeah.
Okay, so we will keep the policy as it is on the agenda. The other one that was on the agenda that has just a minor error is there, hang on a second, let me get to the right spot. Policy 5440.01, reporting child abuse neglect. In the first paragraph, there is a phone number that says 4601, and it should be 4701. And I don't know, maybe Tasia wasn't able to change this until it's updated, but I want to make a note of it here at the meeting so that we make sure that the correct number is there.
Please.
Did anybody have any other questions or comments about any of the other policies listed?
I have a really quick one.
Sure.
It just seems odd, the one about head lice. I mean, are
Mhm.
teachers okay with kids staying in the classroom once they've been, I guess,
I,
That's the question I had, so, because Ryan was gonna look at updating this, so I don't feel like we had an opportunity to look at.
yeah, I reached out to Ryan,
Right, but
and he did.
right, but only today, right?
No,
Correct?
it was
He had it at the work
before the
session?
April 12th meeting.
Okay. I thought he was updating it for tonight's.
No, he got back to me before the April 12th meeting.
Okay.
And so the only thing that he recommended to change was to go the opposite of what you're saying, Roxanne, in that policy. Hang on a second, let me get to it. We had originally checked the last option that said something about, let me go.
Option 3.
yeah, but parents' earliest convenience.
It was the last paragraph.
Was it option 3?
No, we
Oh.
checked option 1.
Yeah.
Which was recommended by Ryan.
The students may return to the classroom after
And,
treatment.
but the
and
last
upon-
paragraph had 2 options within it.
Oh.
So it's way down at the bottom of the first page and it goes on to the second page.
Yeah.
All right, so there's 2 options there.
Okay.
After treatment, we had checked, and we had also checked the last one originally because that was current practice. But when I asked Ryan to review it, he did some research with CDC and other places, and he said we should not check that last one.
Okay, I guess, I mean, if teachers are okay with that, but my experience has always been, I mean, unfortunately, I've experienced this, and it was recommended that I come and get my child right away, and I guess I understood that completely, because they trying to, you know, minimize the damage.
I can forward you the email that Ryan sent me because he had information from CDC about what's really contagious and what's not.
Wow.
So I
okay.
think in the past, we have often thought that it could easily spread, and I think it can, but.
Yeah, I thought it could. Anyway, it says here that the child will remain in the classroom
Right,
until the remainder of the school day,
yeah,
and I always thought it was a best practice would be to have the parent pick the child up right away, but,
Well, and that's what we're still asking.
okay, okay.
And his response was, knits are more than a quarter inch from the scalp. Such knits are usually not viable, very unlikely to hatch to become prowling lice or maybe open shell. Knits are cemented into hair shafts and very unlikely to be transferred successfully to other people. The burden of unnecessary absenteeism to the students, family, and communities far outweighs the risks associated with head lice, and misdiagnosis of knits is very common during knit check conducted by non-medical personnel.
Thank you.
Okay, but what about, okay, did I miss something, or what about actual, this is getting kind of gross, but what about actual bugs? I'm sorry, but.
I started itching when I read it.
I wanted to scratch my head, but I didn't.
I know.
I don't dare.
No.
Looked at it again.
But it says after treatment.
Yeah.
So
After
the,
treatment.
I mean, it says after treatment, they have to be checked by the
Yeah.
school health staff.
When they're returned to the school, they will be checked by the school health staff.
The first check though says if parent is unable to come
Yeah.
pick them up immediately, they may remain in the classroom
Right.
for the remainder of the school.
I'm more concerned about option one above.
Yeah.
And it's completely, you know, I guess, I would love to know what teachers
Oh.
think of that. That's that's my only comment. I guess maybe I'm,
Do you see the drafting note there?
in what color?
It's in
The big
green.
drafting note in dark green.
It's after.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yes, yes, I do see that. And I was actually surprised about that.
I know,
So anyway,
me too.
I don't mean to take a bunch of time on this, but it just really surprised me because I kind of thought teachers would sort of want to minimize the risk on that one.
I understand.
Okay.
That's all right. In a couple of years, Neola will change it. Some new research on it.
In a couple of months.
Oh, maybe we'll weigh in on it.
Were there
Yeah,
any
grace
other,
periods.
I don't have a lot of experience with it in the clinic, but except to treat it. But I had a kid with it though.
Well, hopefully they do it differently than when I was in elementary school and you all sat back down after they took the toothpicks out of your head. Little Johnny, little Susan, you got lice. And everybody teased them, and it was.
Oh, that's
it was
terrible.
So hopefully, my level of seriousness is, hopefully they don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Because that was awful to see.
That is, it's horrible.
any further questions or discussion on any of the policies listed?
Everybody's itchy.
Stop it.
I still, I brought up before, last month, this credit card one, I understand the language, I've talked to Dave of adding the language that we have to add in there, which is fine. I don't agree with that second paragraph, last line, the purchase of meals, district credit card from only when the overnight stay is required, and maybe we can't do anything about it now because it's not up for discussion. We kind of ran out of time last work session. But again, a district-wide staff event is what gets me on this one. And I know we've had discussions about it before, so I think I'm still in the minority, but I don't agree with,
That being an exception?
no,
It says with the exceptions of student
I-
celebrations.
I know, I understand that, but
So,
again, we sit here and say, we trust that the board takes an oath and they're gonna do the right things with their phones and how they handle themselves at this board meeting. So we don't give our administrators a district credit card and give them the ability to make the call of when they feel it would be beneficial to give certain staff or people within that work for them a
Appreciation meal.
yeah, appreciation or an extra thanks. Okay, so that's my issue with limiting. We take some of the power away from them, yes, and they can use their own money to buy it, as you've all stated, but I still, just simple as the Saturday coming in and doing ACT testing, buying lunch for your staff, or for a PLC group, or something, you know, or Donut Friday, you know, I don't think, and this obviously does not allow it unless you buy it for the whole stinking district, but I think those would be beneficial to our staff, and I'm still not in support of this one, and I wish when it was added, I think we talked, but we didn't, it was still passed.
43. It was a 43 vote.
Yeah.
Laura, can I throw something in on this?
Yeah, Lori?
Okay,
If you're gonna reopen the topic of this, you know, there are a few things we're finding that it does limit us in. It's like anyone we send for professional development, whatever, they're gonna have to bring their own lunches, even if everyone else is. You know, if someone's providing something, we're not gonna pay for their lunch to go to that, they're gonna have to bring their own. That's one of the things we kinda caught out of this, so, again, and these are things we're gonna find as we go through this with the change, that, you know, unless we wanna make some allowances for that. I mean, we had some, what was the last thing that we had there, Trish, that,
So, something that just came up that we're finding, when I went to Dave, he said, nope. We work in consortium with the other schools in the area, and I wrote a peer mentor review grant that we've received the last 4 years with New Richmond and St. Croix Central. And through DPI, all of our mentors, which we have to give to our new to district staff for the first 3 years, have to be trained a certain way using certain materials. And so with New Richmond and St. Croix Central, we do a combined training. And I just received note from St. Croix Central, hey, let's get together. And they gave me a date, and they said, we'll do it at New Richmond because they have an auditorium and big common spaces, and we do this every year. We'll do it 9 to 3, we'll do a box lunch so that we can break for 30 minutes, come back together, and we have this whole thing. We have to use certain materials, etc. The box lunch is like $8 for a, you know, if they do a really nice job. It's a brownie and a water and a fruit and a sandwich. And I went to Dave and I said, $8, I have this many new staff, I'm anticipating this many mentors. He said, no. And I said, Dave, he said, the new policy says you cannot pay for food for a specific group of teachers. And I said, but anyone can be a mentor, you know, and I have to align them with certain staff members, and we have this many new hires, and they all have to be trained by DPI through state statute. He said, nope. I said, but the new policy says no. So we'll have all these teachers from New Richmond, all these teachers from St. Croix Central, and I'm gonna ask my teachers to bring a bag lunch. It seems not professional and unusual. But that's what the policy has kind of done to us. So I'd love to reconsider that policy.
So I think that's a separate one.
The reimbursement
Okay,
form
same one.
Yeah.
stated something about when the meal is provided in the cost of the workshop. Certainly there is a cost of this training that has to be done with New Richmond and St. Croix Falls, or St. Croix Central.
We do it's our own. I do it. There's no cost other than the food. Can we consider it part of that?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
There is no cost. We would just be billed from New Richmond for the food.
So there's no cost so how, you said that they have to be trained in a certain way.
Yep, so New Richmond Director of Curriculum, Trish, and Nick Bean, we do the training.
And there's no cost for the facility or the travel or?
No. We take
I
care
mean,
of
the
it.
intention of this was to not have public monies, you know, spent to limit how public monies are spent. Nobody's trying to, you know, it's just different than the private sector, and nobody's trying to diminish the ability to go to a training to do that. But that was not what was happening sometimes, and it was attempted to be addressed. And it wasn't, you know, so stuff was still happening. So this was an attempt to remedy that. It's not an attempt to say you can never, ever do this. Because certainly for school-related activities, board activities like that, a training like that is different from what it was being used for. That is different. And I think we could probably come up with some language. Somebody could probably come up with some language where that is covered, but we still do the rest of it. Because I think it was all, you know, for good reasons, so.
I'm just looking at the summary of the accounting codes. I mean, isn't there some way that, like, in that situation, that would fall under professional development, I would think, and, I mean, I would find that type of meal to be in line with professional development. I would find that to be a legitimate lunch expense because it's part of professional development.
But isn't it specific to credit cards? If it was billed to the school, it's not a credit card expense. This is the admin credit cards.
That's, I think it almost is a separate policy maybe for that one. That's the one for training where if you have to go out of the district, you have to be overnight before you get a meal reimbursed. So I think that's part of that one. So I think there's
That's
two.
not this one.
That's not this one, but they both, I think, in my opinion, fall on the same line. And I think this last here,
The late charges.
and I really don't feel like analyzing every single purchase that everybody makes. I know it's
No,
been done in review. I don't think we should have to. Obviously, there was an issue we did. I don't know if there's a way to, and maybe it is the accounting code, Roxanne, that we look at it, it's
Professional development.
professional development, but is that gonna be abused somehow by somebody? Of course, you know, you can find a way,
But I think you brought up a good point when you said, here we are discussing our cell phones and our behavior with them. And we do have to trust our business people within the district to, somehow analyze those purchases and trust that I don't have any reason to believe that they're abusing that right to make that decision. I applaud Dave for, thinking, hey, no, you can't, that's part not of the policy, and so he's being careful, questioning it, but I think in this case, absolutely that $8 box lunch should be covered.
But that's not in this policy.
Right, so Dave was being extra cautious in saying, no, you can't do it, but, in this case, they're at a conference, they're, full steam ahead, they're getting all the information they need, they didn't have to take a major break to have their lunch.
it was a training, nobody was trying to prevent that.
Right, so my point is that Dave was being extra cautious, so obviously he's looking at it, and, I just think we need to allow I think we need to put some trust, and we do check, purchases, you're going through, you're the treasurer, you're looking at purchases, and if something comes up that isn't, is it against policy, I think they know that we catch it.
Well, that's where a lot of these policies came from going through them. And in addition, we're beholden mostly to the taxpayers, not to what we've always done and what other districts do. We have to make sure that our public monies are being spent accordingly, and with all this stuff, all these expenses going, all these things we need, and then we're we're worried about who's going to pay for whose lunch. It's like, we have to worry about the insurance, we have to worry about all this other stuff. I don't see it, I just don't, and again, totally personal, I come from a state where you don't get to do that stuff. You have to be well outside of the metro area in order to have your meals paid, and it's all on my own, and I don't have a problem with that, because I know as a public employee that the taxpayers don't have to feed me. So, and they already do by paying my wages, so they don't need to provide me lunch. That's where I come from.
How do we bring this back? And that other policy, I don't know what it is, I should have looked it up, but I didn't. Can we bring those back to discuss at the next work session?
You have to tell me what policy you're talking about.
Oh, come on, you know. I would like policy 6423, and I'll email the other policy that I want added.
Yeah, I knew it was 6423, it's the other one, I'm not sure
Yeah, well.
I'm gonna email you,
All
put
right,
on the agenda.
let's, I'll make a motion to approve all these policies, section, whatever it is. RD1. As presented.
With the exception of the phone number being changed.
With the exception of the phone number being changed.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
All right, so motion by Bruce to approve policies as listed, as presented, and second by Katie. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda.
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda items 6A, B, C, and D.
Is there a second?
A second.
All right, so motion by Katie and second by Patty Jo. There were some revisions to the minutes. Tasia made sure to make it obvious what those revisions were. So we're approving them as revised. Any questions or comments about any of these? All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we are to the installment of oath of office.
Okay.
Front and center.
Come on
I've
up.
been sitting here
Lori,
sweating
too.
out the whole time that
I know.
Marge wasn't here, and here she's sitting down below the podium there.
So where do you want us?
You gotta go right in the middle, so
Oh,
you get on
okay.
camera.
I don't
I'm
know.
trying to stay 6 feet.
No,
apart.
right over here.
Face over here, okay.
Do they have it where they can read it?
Yeah, but I need to read it out loud.
Right, so it's hard.
Can you take like one design step forward, kind of together, so I can maybe take a picture?
Okay.
Can we have 2 of them?
You can have 2 of them.
I don't have my glasses. Do I need to read it?
No, you should just say it, yes,
Okay.
I state your name.
I, Lori Belargin,
I, Marge Below.
I, Sherry Link,
Who has been duly elected to the Board of Education
who has been duly elected to the Board of Education
of the School District of Somerset,
of the School District of Somerset,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
but have not yet entered upon the duties thereof,
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge
and will faithfully discharge
the duties of said office
the duties of said office
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Well, thank you.
So we each need to fill out.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Welcome.
I was so worried you weren't here, and you were hiding behind this
Yeah,
table.
I was gonna get up and move that
I
over.
didn't feel this.
Okay.
Fill that out.
All right,
Seriously?
So the next item on the agenda is general information, May meeting date for the work session on 24th. For the regular session. And once around the table, can I be first?
Yes,
to,
please.
Express my appreciation to Bob and Catherine for their many years
Oh.
of service. On the Somerset School Board. Your expertise will be missed.
Thank you.
How many years have it been?
Well, let's see.
A
How
lot.
many years does it feel like, or? 2007 is when I first ran, so
13.
2008 was.
Wow.
It's been a journey, but it's been something I will miss. But there's the time commitment that I just don't have anymore. So there's going on. But really wish everybody the best with the new board members and treat them well. Behave. So, congratulations.
And I imagine we will still continue to hear from you with village business and building and
Absolutely. Yep. If there's anything you guys want information on.
Thank you, Bob. I mean, you really have been such a valuable board member, and I know you dedicated so much time.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much
I
appreciated.
appreciate
anything else, Katie,
Me?
for once around the table?
No.
Okay, Roxanne?
I just want to say welcome to Cherie and Marge. And then also, Bob, I think it's really cool that you get to drive around the campus here and see the incredible work that you had a huge part of. And I just really want to thank you for all of that.
that. Thank you.
And Catherine, thank you to Catherine as well.
Yeah, Catherine. I'm gonna call her.
Bob? Good, Bruce?
Nope. We said it. It's Bob and Catherine.
Patty
Welcome.
Jo?
I hope the district or administrators have a plan for the news this week that could be coming out one way or another with the social justice stuff that's going on with the Floyd trial, or the Chauvin trial and that stuff, just to put out something for the students, so.
I think that probably went out today,
Oh, I did not see it.
so, yeah. And we met yesterday as NBC, what is today, Monday?
Today is Monday.
This morning, we had a Zoom with all the NBC soups, just to speak on that, what other districts are doing, and it's so different from district to district. You know, some of the districts have had walkouts and protests and that, and even at our CISA 11 meeting today, we had further discussion on that, because again, depending where you're at, so hopefully we're prepared.
Today was the day of walkouts, so I'm like, oh, we're already off.
Yeah, no, it's happening all
Yeah,
over.
it was, today though was the day for Minnesota, Wisconsin, big stage or watch it walkouts, and a lot of them did. I know Hudson did, and Stillwater did, and a lot of the areas did. But I just hope we have something prepared for the students for supporting that. And then, what's all I had?
Can I add congratulations to the Somerset hockey team and the coaches for the sportsmanship award as well?
Yeah, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
If that is all, I will take a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Patty Jo. Second?
Oh, second.
Thank you, Roxanne.
Oh, sorry.
Motion to adjourn by Patty Jo and second by Roxanne. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:14 PM. Thank you.